Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today we're zeroing in on a really critical player in, well, the whole transition to electrification, a company called Wolfspeed. And the big question, based on the research you sent over, is pretty straightforward. Is now actually a good time to buy Wolfspeed stock?
That really is the key question, isn't it? Especially for anyone tracking power electronics. We've looked through your sources and basically boiled it down to three main areas. First, what's happened operationally over the last quarter or so that's kind of stabilized things. Second, a closer look at the fundamentals, the financials, their competitive edge. And finally, what the charts, the technical signals, might be telling us right now. It's definitely, well, it's a high-risk, high-reward situation we're looking at.
Okay, great. And hey, if you appreciate us digging into this kind of analysis for you, please do hit that subscribe button, give us a like, maybe leave a comment. It really does help us out. Oh, and if you have a specific company you'd like us to look into like this, definitely drop it in the comments below. We'll add it to our list. All right, so let's set the stage. Wolfspeed, they're really fundamental to this whole electrification shift, right?
Yeah.
Anything needing high efficiency power, they're involved.
That's exactly right. Their main thing is making these high-quality silicon carbide materials, SiCle for short, wafers and devices. Now, unlike regular silicon, SiCle lets electronics handle much higher voltages, higher temperatures, and crucially, with way less energy loss.
And what does that mean practically?
Well, it means you can have smaller, lighter systems, much better power density. Think about next-gen electric vehicles, big industrial machines, the infrastructure for renewable energy. SiCle is becoming essential. And this market, it's not niche. Your sources are pointing to growth over, 20% compounded annually for the next decade? It's huge potential.
Huge potential, yeah. But it hasn't been a smooth ride. They've had some growing pains. You mentioned stabilization. The last 3 months sound like they were pretty critical. What actually happened, say, July through September this year, 2025?
Yeah, the sources lay out a pretty clear timeline for, let's call it de-risking. Back in July, they finished a significant financial restructuring. And this wasn't just moving numbers around. It was about getting new capital in, stabilizing things, streamlining operations, making them, as they put it, a financially stronger company. That definitely eased some short-term cash worries.
Okay, so step one was shoring up the finances. Then August.
August seemed to be about internal improvements. Management talked up better production efficiency, specifically in their materials business, like they were fine-tuning the engine.
Fine-tuning,
Yeah.
leading up to something bigger in September.
Exactly. That led straight to the main event on September 10th. Wolfspeed officially launched its 200-millimeter silicon carbide materials portfolio. And that's a pretty big deal in this industry.
Okay, let's pause on that. 200 millimeters. For someone not deep in semiconductor manufacturing, it sounds like just a slightly bigger wafer. Why is going from, say, 150 millimeter to 200 millimeters such a milestone?
Well, it's all about the economics, really, because you're dealing with area. Moving to that larger 200-millimeter wafer means you can just cut way more chips, more functional devices from each single wafer.
Okay. More chips per bake, essentially.
Precisely, and that directly leads to a lower cost per unit compared to the smaller wafers. It gives them an instant cost advantage, something proprietary, over competitors still stuck on the older tech.
So putting that sequence together, fixing the finances, boosting efficiency, then launching this potentially game-changing 200-millimeter tech, the whole story for investors has kind of shifted, hasn't it?
It really has. The conversation on the street isn't so much will Wolfspeed survive this big expansion anymore. Now it's more like, okay, how well and how fast can they actually execute? Can they make money off this 200-millimeter innovation? The focus is absolutely on execution now.
Right. Execution. Let's dig into the numbers then and their longer-term position. Fundamentally, that demand seems real. Fiscal year 2024 revenue, $1.32 billion. That's up 18% year over year. That sounds pretty strong compared to competitors.
It is. They're outpacing most of the other pure-play CC companies. And what gives investors, some real confidence is the visibility they have. They're sitting on over $4 billion in multi-year supply agreements, signed deals.
$4 billion. Wow. Who with?
Big names, General Motors, major players in renewable energy integration. These aren't just handshakes. They're locked-in orders.
Okay, that $4 billion backlog, some of these people call it their security blanket, right? Showing that demand is solid. But let's talk about that competitive advantage, the moat you mentioned. Beyond the 200-millimeter wafers, what makes them hard to beat?
It's really scale and control. Wolfspeed got in early. They were the first mover in building large-scale CC capacity. Plus, they're vertically integrated, meaning they control the whole process, from the raw SiC material itself all the way up to the finished power device. Combine that control with the proprietary 200mm tech. Competitors are basically playing catch-up. They're building a scale and a cost structure that makes it really tough for big customers, like car companies, to just switch suppliers easily. High switching costs.
That sounds like a classic growth story setup. But we have to talk about the flip side, the risk. Because this company is still burning through cash, right? That has to be a major factor.
Absolutely. And that's the tension right there, because they've been ramping up so fast and dealing with, let's be honest, some initial yield problems at their big new factory, the Mohawk Valley facility. Their gross margin is feeling the pressure. It was around 26% for FY 2024.
Building these giant complex factories, these fabs, is never cheap or easy, I suppose.
Exactly. It's incredibly expensive, and you always hit bumps early on.
And that spending is hitting the bottom line hard. A net loss for FY 2024 of what, $349 million?
That's right. $349 million loss. Now, they do have cash on hand, about $1.12 billion, but they're also carrying significant long-term debt, over $2 billion. And maybe most critically, free cash flow is negative $444 million last fiscal year, almost entirely because of those huge capital expenditures, the factory build-out.
Okay, so let me push back on that security blanket idea for a second. A $4 billion backlog is great, fantastic even. But if it costs them nearly $500 million a year in cash just to build the capacity to maybe fulfill that backlog, doesn't that backlog become a bit of a liability if they can't fix those margin and yield issues at Mohawk Valley?
That's perfectly put. That is the absolute core question that will determine where this stock goes. And you're right, maybe security blanket is too comforting. It's more like a de-risking tool for all that spending.
Yeah.
Management is pouring hundreds of millions into these facilities because they have those contracts, giving them confidence the revenue will be there. But yes, if they fail in the execution, if the yields don't improve, fulfilling that backlog gets very, very expensive.
So what's the outlook there? Does management think they can fix it?
Well, the guidance they're giving is for continued revenue growth, high teens to low 20% for the first half of fiscal 25. And crucially, they are guiding for sequential margin improvement. They expect things to get better operationally at Mohawk Valley. The entire investment case really hinges on them hitting those internal targets.
Which brings us neatly to the near-term catalysts. What are the specific things coming up in the next, say, 3 months that could really move the stock price quickly?
Okay, several key dates. First up, their fiscal Q1 2026 earnings release. That's expected in late October 2025. Then there's the full Q3 2025 earnings call in December 18th. On those calls, analysts won't just be glancing at revenue. They'll be digging deep into management's comments on two things: sustainable margin trends and updated numbers on how much capacity they're actually using at Mohawk Valley. Good news there could send the stock up. Bad news.
Right. So company reporting is key. What about external factors, market flows?
Yeah, a couple things to watch. There's standard ETF and index rebalancing around November 15th. That can sometimes cause flows. More interesting, maybe, is the window for institutional investors to file their 13Fs. That opens December 2nd.
And why are the 13Fs important here?
Because they show us what the big funds, the so-called smart money, were buying in the previous quarter. If we see well-respected large institutions taking new significant positions in Wolfspeed come December, that signals growing confidence in the long-term story. It often gives the stock a boost.
Okay, let's switch to the charts. Technicals. Based on the data from late September, the price action sounds like it's been wild, reflecting that high-risk label. It had a huge jump recently.
It did, yeah. A nearly 27% surge in extended hours trading just recently. That kind of volatility definitely attracts traders. Looking at the levels, the analysis suggests pretty solid short-term support has formed down in the $16 to $18 range.
And resistance. Where's the ceiling right now?
Immediate resistance looks to be between $22 and $24. Now, if they deliver positive news on that October earnings call, the technical analysts are eyeing a potential breakout target up between $28 and $32. And is the underlying momentum shifting too, not just the price spikes? It seems to be. The stock price recently climbed back above its 50-day moving average. That's a key short to medium-term indicator. And it's now getting close to the longer-term 200-day moving average. When a stock crosses convincingly above both of those averages, technical traders see it as a strong sign that a longer-term uptrend, a bullish reversal, might be starting, moving out of just bouncing around and into real appreciation.
Okay, and we can't really talk about recent moves without mentioning the speculative side, the rumors, high-risk, unconfirmed stuff, but it definitely fuels trading. What's the buzz?
Well, the main one that keeps popping up is potential buyout interest. The chatter is that some major semiconductor companies, or maybe even a big car manufacturer, might be looking at buying Wolfspeed outright, just to lock down their own supply of CSI for the long haul.
An acquisition. That would certainly move the price. Anything else?
There's also some market talk. Again, just talk about a possible joint venture in the Asia-Pacific region, maybe for manufacturing, maybe technology licensing. These kinds of rumors, true or not, definitely add fuel to the fire and contribute to that positive sentiment you see bubbling up on investor forums.
Okay, so let's try and pull all these threads together. You got the cutting-edge 200-millimeter tech, a massive $4 billion backlog, huge market growth ahead. But then you have the debt, the cash burn, and this critical execution risk at Mohawk Valley. How do we balance that? Risk versus reward.
It really boils down to what we said at the start: high risk, high reward. It's almost a textbook case. The primary risk, the thing that could derail everything, is purely execution. Getting the yields up and improving margins at that Mohawk Valley factory, if they stumble there, the valuation is questionable.
But the reward side is basically becoming the leader in a market that's set to explode in size over the next decade.
That's exactly it. The reward is cementing leadership in SICKI, having billions in revenue already locked in through that backlog, and riding these powerful secular waves of EV adoption and renewable energy build-out. The long-term potential, if they execute, is still incredibly compelling.
So taking everything into account, the accelerating revenue, the tech lead, the debt situation seeming manageable relative to the growth, how does the overall analysis shake out? What's the rating?
Well, it's interesting. The formal analyst consensus is still mostly a hold, mainly because of that Mohawk Valley uncertainty. But synthesizing the sources you provided, really focusing on that technological moat and the strength of that backlog, it leads to a pretty solid 8 out of 10 bullish rating.
An 8 out of 10. That's quite bullish, despite the risks. So who is this stock attractive for them?
It seems attractive on two levels, really. For shorter-term traders, there are clear potential catalysts coming up in Q4 earnings, maybe M&A rumors flaring up again. But maybe more significantly, it looks attractive for long-term investors, people willing to bet on the multi-year growth story, ride out the near-term volatility, and wait for that margin expansion as execution improves. The whole opportunity really comes down to their ability to get past that execution hurdle in the near term.
That leads us perfectly into our final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Let's assume Wolfspeed does successfully ramp up Mohawk Valley, they nail the execution, and really solidify their advantage with 200-millimeter RC. What is that huge projected growth over 20% a year for the whole celluloid market? What does that imply for the future? Maybe the profitability, maybe the market share. All those companies still heavily dependent on plain old, less efficient traditional silicon chips.
That's a great question. It highlights how one company's success here isn't just about them. It could genuinely shake up the established order in the much bigger semiconductor world.
Food for thought indeed. Thank you for joining us for this exploration of Wolfspeed today. We hope you found it valuable. We look forward to having you back here on a Nothing Tech podcast soon.